Mr. Stuart Batty. Stuart's been turning for a long time.
41 years.
41 years, I was going to say 40. And he knows pretty much a lot of the tricks of the trade. So you're in for a good educational experience as far as metallurgy and grinding and stuff. There's very few that can match. So, Stuart, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. I know that there's a Broncos game on tonight, so you guys want to get out of here quick. What time am I going till, just so I know?
What's that?
What time am I going till?
You got 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. That's long enough to beat Mahoney. I was racing like Mahoney in bowl turning last week. I hope they release the video. I don't think he was on top of this game though. He was not as sharp as usual. We both had a 15 by 7 bowl and we're racing to the outside. We didn't race on the inside primarily because we both have a very similar technique on the inside, but the outside is very different. And he called the inside of his, and I turned mine out to show people it. Anyway, it was fun, and I did it at the SWAT, which is the Texas Woodturning Symposium. I think, was it last weekend? I think it was just last weekend. It wasn't long ago. Anyway, just for people here that don't know, and I know some of you know, but I have online, and that's free, completely free. If you go to Vimeo, vimeo.com, you must put in /woodturning, and down there I've got 36 free videos. These are not free videos shot, you know, with a little camcorder. These were shot with 6 high-definition professional cameras with a professional cameraman. So they're educational. I'm not telling any stories, any jokes, I'm not messing about. There's 34 or 36 videos. Some are just 10 minutes long, some are 45 minutes long. And they're completely free, they're in HD, and you can download them, you can watch them on an iPad, an iPhone. They solve a lot of the problems that you have in woodturning that you don't realize that you've got. In other words, it could be something to do with chucking, it could be something to do with why am I getting torn grain. Totally free, watch them, download them. I know several people here have used them as references. So they're worth having. If they were put on DVDs and I was to sell them, it'd be like 200 bucks worth. But I just made them and gave them away because I just wanted to get back to woodturning because woodturning's been pretty good to me. So what I'm demonstrating tonight is I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to change my demo to one that I haven't really done before. It's not that I don't do this, but I'm going to explain how we're actually cutting the wood. Because watching some other turners turn, I realize that they're fighting all the time, and I'm not. When I'm turning, I'm never fighting. Even when I watched Mahoney, he was working harder than I was on the outside. He wasn't using as much leverage, he was using more strength. He wasn't using double contact the way I was, and then he was fixing the torn grain. And I don't ever fix torn grain because I don't ever have torn grain. So I never push with more than 2 pounds of pressure. I never use strength. I always use repeatable techniques, and I don't ever get torn grain. I've even brought a punky piece of wood. It says punky, and it's not going to have torn grain. Because if you've got torn grain, something's wrong. Now, it could be your technique, but usually it's more to do with the speed of the lathe versus the speed of the cut versus how sharp the tool and how it's sharpened. In technique, to be truthful, you know, I have the 7 fundamentals. I'm going to go over them very briefly. I don't want to spend long on them because that's not what this demo is about. But the 7 fundamentals is what I've got on the video. It's basically a breakdown of all the various things. But the most important thing, the thing we have the most difficulty with in woodturning is number 1, which is grain. And simply the rule of grain is, and it's real simple, we peel side grain. This is the most important thing in the whole of woodturning, and we slice end grain. And I'm going to do that right now on a block of wood. And I'm going to do it on a bowl and on a spindle. It's the same technique. So the funny thing is, just talking about angles of tools, you know, there's a few woodturners out there that are less critical than me. I'm kind of critical about the rules and sticking to them. Because if I want to make a really thin wall bowl today, and I want to make it again tomorrow, and I want to be able to make it in a year's time, if I change any of the setup rules, I start working harder and harder. So basically, we've got to know where the grain is. And remember in woodturning, here's a pencil. So we all know what a pencil looks like. So the grain is either running this direction on the lathe, or it's running this direction. There's no time when we ever deliberately set the grain at 45. So keep that in mind. The minute the grain is set at 45, you then are completely doing something that is not normal in woodturning. And I've seen it done, and some people even do it, where, have you seen where they make a sphere and they keep rotating the block of wood? and cutting a bit off, and rotating it and cutting a bit off. Technically, 100% breaks the #1 rule. You can't peel side grain and slice end grain. The minute you take the grain off an angle, you're always cutting uphill into end grain. So this is the #1 rule. We never, I'm going to put it big, never cut uphill into end grain. That's when you get the catch. Who's had a catch here? Anyone get a catch? Okay, right, that's what you did. There's only 2 types of catches. Anybody know what the other type of catch is? There's only 2 types of catches. One is because you cut uphill into end grain and it took control. So when you cut uphill into end grain, it wants to pull the tool down. Well, the problem is when it's pulling the tool down, it's also pulling it in deeper in the arc. So it's pulling it in and things go wrong. Either the tool gets kicked out your hand, a piece of wood flies off, or you just get a fright. But whatever it is, this is the #1 rule, we don't break. So if you take a block of wood and you start keep moving it around a little bit more to kind of reshape it, then somewhere in that cut, you were cutting uphill in end grain. Now, it might not be a big enough percentage of end grain to cause a catch, but it'd be a big enough percentage of end grain to get torn grain. And I'm going to show you how, by changing my gouge, just by rotating it, I can go from getting a perfect cut to tearing the grain, just by rotating my wrist. And that's a choice we'll have. So that's what I want to concentrate on today. So we'll come back to this a little bit later, but that's the main #1 rule. The other things that we do is chucking, so I'll just run through the other part of the #7. So first thing is chucking. Chucking is real simple. It's real simple. It's the second thing we do. First thing we do is we decide, is the grain going this way, is it going this way, which you've got to choose. So I'm turning a spindle blank right now, and my chucking is accurate location. In other words, I put a dot in the middle, that's accurate, then I tighten it. It's a bit like chuck jaws. You make sure it's located against the jaws, then you tighten it. You don't just stick it in, tighten it, and it's got a wobble on it. And the same here, I make sure it's reasonably in the center, then I tighten the lathe. So the second most important thing is sharpening. And sharpening it's a little bit complex, and unfortunately, it's the one that when you get it wrong, becomes the most difficult to fix. In other words, so there's 4 dimensions to sharpening. 2 of them are less important, so a sharp tool is the most important thing. I've been turning 41 years, and I'm just as lousy with a dull tool as anybody else. So if the tool is dull, I can't cut well, and I'll always tear the grain. Now, a dull tool doesn't mean that you can't cut the wood. You could just keep pushing harder and harder. You'd even get smoke and flames and all of that stuff that might go with it. But at the end of the day, we don't want torn grain. So the minute the tool is dull, it will tear the grain. The downside of that is you have to fix it. If you fix it by sharpening tool, you're doing another cut, which is the optimum thing, or do we fix it with sandpaper? And a lot of times people fix it with sandpaper, which is not good. Okay, so a sharp tool, there's several parts. There's A, B, and C. So A, B, C, and D in the sharp tool. First of all is the cutting angle. Now, and by the way, I'm not talking about scrapers today, I'm just talking about cutting. Cutting angle. Primary angle that we use in wood turning is 40 degrees. It's not rocket science. If you drop down to 35, the tool starts to self-feed. And if you go, so this is self-feeding, that's not the one we want. If you go to 45, instead of pushing with 2 pounds of pressure, I have to push with 4 pounds of pressure. Let's think about it. If I'm pushing with 4 pounds of pressure and it's a thin wall bull, what is the bull going to do? It's going to flex more. So 40 is also a magic number. 45 means that if I'm pushing on the end of 45 and there's a floor, some of the energy is going in the floor. If I drop the angle and I'm pushing, it starts sliding. So at 40 degrees, the bevel starts sliding by itself, and I don't have to guide the tool with my left hand at all. So this is a number that I have no idea that my dad worked with 3, he worked with 35, 40, and 45, depending on the gouge, depending on the day, well not depending on the day, depending on the project. That my dad done spindle turning, spindle gouge, 45, roughing gouge, 35, roughing gouge, which is your big spindle roughing gouge, which is this guy. We've all got one of those. And then bull gouge at 45. But I'm cutting honey locust for spindle, and I'm cutting honey locust wherever it is below for bull. I don't know why there would be different angles. I'm doing the same cut, slicing end grain, peeling side grain, so we just stick with 40. That's it, end of story. Say platform and leave it. Right, the next thing is shape of the tool. This is really important. This tool has wings that are forwards. This is a spindle roughing gouge, which means it's lousy at cutting curves. So it can only do shallow curves. If I want to do deeper curves, I'll start taking the wings back. So on this guy, you see the wings are back. That means it can make concave and convex shapes. Okay, so keep that in mind. Shape is critical. So it's shape of, say, shape of the edge, of the edge. So is it wings back, wings forward? Next, and less critical, size of the tool. So if it's a 1/4 inch, you know, a 1/4 inch gouge is not going to do a 24 inch bowl. But also, if it's 1.25 inches, it's not going to fit in a 1/4 inch cove. So I want to do a 1/4 inch cove, my 1/4 gouge is going to fit, and my 1/4 inch gouge is going to do a 24 inch bowl. They've got to, and then the next after that is leverage, which is length of handle. So, now originally I designed modular handles, not because I wanted to change the handle very often. It was so when I went to the grinder, I didn't have to swing the handle in front of me. But then I realized that the advantage of that is, maybe I just want to put a shorter handle on it. That was the reason that I went with realized modular is quite handy. It's nice to be able to just change the handle, because maybe I don't need a 24 inch handle on it. Or, one of the things you notice that if you buy a Sorby gouge, they do a 3/8, a 1/2 inch, and a 5/8 bull gouge. They've all got 16 inch handles on them. So just do the math on that. Since when does a 3/8 gouge need a 16 inch handle? And since when does a 5/8 gouge need a 16, which is too short? So modular handles are good. It doesn't necessarily have to be the ones that I designed, but modularity is nice. So that's what we got with this. Let's do some cuts. So I'll talk about stance and things a little bit more as we get going. Let's put a longer handle on this guy. So this particular gouge here is a gouge that can only peel. It cannot cut end grain. In fact, if I try and cut end grain with this gouge, it will catch. So you'll have heard that you're not supposed to use this on the bowl. Do we all know that? And some of you may be brand new to wood turning. But anyway, this gouge is not a gouge that's going to be used on a bowl because it breaks the #1 rule. Because it works perpendicular to the lathe, if you're doing it on a bowl, you're cutting uphill into end grain with a really big edge. So the crash is pretty big. Now there is a guy on YouTube that turns a bowl with it, because he says, not supposed to turn a bowl with one of these, but I'm going to make a bowl anyway with it. And if you watch the video, at the end he's bleeding. Okay, he has to go to the hospital. Alright, so you can choose. It's a bit like a traffic light. Maybe the light's going to just turn red and I'll run it. But if you keep doing it, eventually you're going to get T-boned. And if you use this on a bowl, eventually you're going to get hurt. So the difference is, the reason that a bowl gouge is better is because it cuts at a 90-degree different angle. The grain is changed 90 degrees, and this gouge cuts this way, and this gouge cuts this way. Two different aspects. So all this gouge can do is the primary peel cut. It cannot do slice. So it means if it can't do slice, it cannot cut any end grain. In other words, it can't cut at an angle very well. It can't cut across the end grain. It can just take it down the round. And for this, it's exceptional. There's no tool as good or as fast as this one. And I know some people take the corners off with a skew, and some people take them off with a bowl gouge. But I promise you, if you're in a race, you want this guy. Alright? So, main thing is, I can't start in the middle. If I make a cove in the middle, either side of that cove is end grain. So if I start in the middle, I might start well, but if I go sideways, she pulls wrong way. So I go off the end where there's no end grain. The end grain is behind me. And I can just peel it off. This is a pure peel cut. All the chips are in are side grain. Now, if I'm going across the surface, it must be light. Light fast cuts, they should remain side grain. But there is a tiny percentage, you can see the dust, that's end grain. If I take a bigger cut, watch what happens, she'll grab. See her grabbing? The reason then, I create a wall of end grain. So I can do light fast cuts, like this, side grain. But if I take a large volume, I change the cut. So here I'm just doing light fast cuts, and then slow down fast cut. And I can feel a knot in there, there's a knot, because it's making it crack. So right there, you can see the knot? I can feel it, because that's an uphill into end grain. I've got no choice but to cut it, but there's the knot. So I could feel it was pulling the tool in. But we don't care about it, because it wasn't enough to affect the tool badly. I'm going to now do peel and slice. This is the cut I want to talk about in a minute, but I need to throw this block of wood in a chuck for that, so I need to prep it for a chuck. I'll put it on a chuck in a minute. So that particular cut is a very magical cut because it's the only cut we do in wood turning where we're actually cutting a perfect side grain peel and a perfect end grain slice at the same time. But I need to get rid of the tailstock to do that. This is the spalded piece of wood, so this is a rotten piece of, it's not rotten, but it's rotten enough. So this is a rotten piece of maple. So same thing again here, just take it down around. By the way, the body contact with it, my handle is just my body. And I'm not moving my arms much, I'm leaning my body to do the cut. More. And the same thing again here, we'll put a tenon on. There's a little bit of play in that revolving center. I don't know if you can go off here like I can. So I'm going to change the revolving center out. Well, I don't need it anymore. That's definitely. Oh yeah, there's a little play in that guy. Just a little. Okay, we got 2 blocks that'll work for now.
I'm going to pass around Lloyd Jenkins' address and phone number. Write her down on a piece of paper, program it into your phone, whatever you want to do with it, so you can get a hold of it.
I know the tailstock, the big mark chuck goes over the dry center as long as the dry center is not bigger than the thread. So let's start off with the high lowest. I found that out because sometimes I've turned up the places where I demonstrate there's no knockout bar. You know, there's no knockout bar, how to get it out, you know? And I've used my gouge once or twice, but that's not good. Usually if that happens, I'm looking for somebody else's gouge to knock it out. Show you, this is a wide parting tool. I'll show you a narrow one. So 2 types of parting tools. So we've got one that's 1/2 inch wide, and then we've got one that's a 1/16. And we use a 1/2 inch one wide because it's going to show you the peel cut better than the little guy. Little guys for parting off. This one's technically a beading and parting tool, which for the Brits we used to use this for parting in and then rolling the beads with it. It's great for that, but it's a tool that requires a little bit of skill compared to a gouge because it's got a bit of a bite. However, it's a very effective tool at parting in. So, when I'm parting in, what I'm doing with this particular tool, it can only cut technically correct in one direction. Now, that doesn't mean I couldn't sharpen and put a burr on the edge here, and maybe some of the burr in contact is going down and help to clean up the end grain here. But this cut is not actually cutting end grain, it's just peeling side grain and hacking the death out of the end grain. So when we use this cut, we don't technically want bevel contact when we start like this, because if we do, you'll see it throws the fibers. So instead of cutting them out of the way, they jump ship. And so technically here, what I do if I was going to use this, let me just make sure I tighten that. I was doing a demo recently, but I forgot to tighten it shut, so let's not do that today. Oh, wow, there it was. I wonder what jumped. That's what it was, the knot. I felt it loosen up in the chuck a little bit and it grabbed on the knot. But that was because I came in this way. So I was cutting uphill in end grain, which meant it grabbed on the knot and threw it out. So ideally when we go in like this anyway, we want to scrape. Now you can help that a little bit. So here's a little bit of vibration on this thing. Let me just see if I can solve the problem. Because vibration on the lathe. There would be a towel somewhere. Okay. One of the problems is with moving headstocks is they get dirt underneath and they actually make it vibrate. So if I had the option of having a moving headstock or not, there's no way I'm having a moving headstock, folks, because they create all sorts of problems. I've had many demos where I've had to jam the headstock paper to stop it from vibrating. So I'm going to move it forward for a minute and see all that dirt on that bed. That sits underneath the lathe. And put it back and do it again a couple of times. Clean it. And then do it again. Because what happens is we get one chip right in the middle, the headstock flexes, and it creates, and I'm going to bring it right to the end, and it actually creates vibration. That should be better. But I had one the other week, it was a jet lathe. I couldn't hollow the bowl out. I couldn't even do the outside of the bowl. I couldn't do anything. It was so bad, the vibration. So what I did was, I took a piece of paper, that size, I got something lifted up, I put it in one corner, jammed it down, and the vibration disappeared. So what had happened is, because it's movable headstock, iron, after it's milled, can move a tiny bit, it had warped. So the headstock was flexing like this. Just by 2 or 3 thousand, you could actually feel it. When you switch the lathe on, you could touch down here, you could feel it vibrating. But this one feels good. Yeah, nothing there, so that's good. But I could actually feel it flexing. So one piece of paper solved the problem because I could not do the outside of the bowl. It was vibrating so badly. So this should improve it. Off we go. Okay, so this is piling in, a really hard piling in cut. And it's pretty. So it gets rid of waste, but it doesn't do a very good job on the end. You can see it all, it's really mashed up. Does that show up pretty good on the camera?
Oh yeah.
You can see it's certainly not premium cut, is it? Okay, so how would we normally fix that? Well, normally, when I was growing up, I was told to use a skew chisel. I have no idea why, but I was told to use them. So, because it's actually kind of a lousy tool. And I know that my dad's got a video on it, Alan Lacey's got a video on it, some people specialize in the skew, but it's really an ineffective tool. And the reason it's ineffective, it can only either peel or slice, but it can't do both actions at once. So it can do this cut, which will go down, and you can see it come down, I can feel my end ring. She's going. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to sharpen before it came. And only the very tip does the work, so let's just make sure it's really sharp. So set this platform at 20. I'm going to just change it just a fraction. Set this platform at 20, and the other platform for my gouge is 40. So this one is 20. Hold on quite the front. And the other platform is 40. So 20 and 20 make 40. And I'm only concerned about the very, very tip. I don't care about the rest because I'm not going to use it. Okay, so the tip was a bit damaged because I've flown with tools and they get pretty deep out of my bag. Okay, so this is a slice. This is slicing the end here. So it's a very effective cut at slicing the end grain. But the downside of it is I can only take off about 30 seconds. So if I was to want to shorten a piece of wood, it would take a lot of time. It would come down. It would take forever. And yet, it does a great job at the end grain. Comes in pretty good. But I had to do this plus this to take off half an inch. This is the one I was using against Mahoney. Pretty big carrot. Okay, so this is a 3/4 inch. I'm just going to make sure she's sharp because the last time I used it, I was beating up Mahoney with it. So I wanted to show you what this can do. Now, somewhere in woodturning history, there was a genius in woodturning. I don't know who it was. Probably somebody that worked for Robert Sorby's. They invented the elliptical fluted bowl gouge. Whoever invented it was a genius, because radiuses have limitations, but elliptical or V'd, and V'd more modern, but whoever invented the elliptical fluted bowl gouge, and the reason they used to be elliptical because they were hand forged, and for some reason they were able to hand forge the lips in the flute, and then they used to also have an elliptical outside shape, so the wall thickness was always even, so they were nice to grind. So that's what Sorby invented 150 years ago, and whoever did it created the tool that can do what I'm going to do. Cannot be done with a spindle gouge, cannot be done with a roughing gouge, can't be done with anything but either elliptical or V-fluted gouge, which is, I can take a touch there, it's a little flexible there. I can take 5/8 off in one pass, direct to finish. And I'm going to put a piece of paper underneath that lathe. Okay. I'm going to do the same as what I did the other day, the other week, because something's in there and it's vibrating too much. Okay. See if it kills it. Probably knocked it off true, but we don't care about that. Going to do the same thing again. So what I'm showing you here is what this guy does is able to peel a massive amount of wood off, which is a big amount, and I didn't tear the end grain. That's the difference here. It's actually the same tool as these two together. It's exactly the same tool, and the reason for that is, if we look at the wing of a bowl gouge, I have a straight wing, not a curved wing. This does not work with a curved wing. It's a dead straight wing, and it's 40 degrees. This is a parting tool. It's a straight cutting edge, and it's 40 degrees. So the wing on this gouge and the edge of this tool are the same tool. And then, the tip of this gouge is the same as a skew. Oh, I couldn't see, there it is. The tip of this gouge, when it's vertical, is the same cutting edge as the very tip of the gouge. The only option I have with the gouge is I have a little bit more choices on it, rotate, open, or closed. So what effectively we're looking to do in wood turning, let's draw it on the board, is we're always trying to cut the tubes exactly vertical. So if we looked at the block of wood here, and it's millions and millions of tubes, we're looking to cut those as they rotate down. As we come right there, right at that point, we want our cutting edge to be vertical. That's what gives you the slice. And then the peel is what the wing does. The peel just gets rid of waste. We don't care about the peel. That's what we're seeing here. This is the peel, these big chips. We can see them. That's just the waste. But right at the very end, we need the slice. So we've got our skew chisel. It's got a pretty much a vertical tip here. Not perfectly vertical, it's back a little bit. But the more we're cutting vertical, now, if you take it and you start taking the skew chisel and you start turning it around so it starts pointing uphill, the cut will change and it'll start to get different. And as you go more, and if you took it this way, well, you know what would happen with the skew. You're pointing uphill into the end grain there, it would just catapult in. So with our gouge, the more I keep the tip of the tool very vertical, the better the finish. So let's show you on a punky piece of wood, because this piece of wood is too forgiving. So this is honey locust, it's dense, pretty wet, has no spalting, it's super forgiving. By the way, so I did a really fast rush cut. It wasn't not the greatest finish. I'll pass it around in a minute. You know why? Because I need it in a minute. I'll pass it around in a minute. So this is a punky piece of maple. It's a silver maple from Boulder, but it's rotten. You see how rotten it is? I can just keep turning the key. So going across the face of this, if we do it with a parting tool first, you'll see it'll be a real mess. In fact, it's so rotten as I crushed it in, it knocked it off center. Okay, let's use a parting tool. So the parting tool is giving me this nice long chip, like this, but it's giving me a really bad finish here. So you can see, especially where the spalting is right here, it's really rotten. So that would take, there's no way I could clean up with one skew cut, probably 2, maybe 3 cuts, because it's not just mashed up the end grain, it's actually pulled it out. So it's got a hold of the fibers, instead of cutting them out of the way, it grabbed them. So let's do the same with this. Now I'm not looking for a perfect finish cut on this, I'm going to do a more aggressive cut, and then I'm going to change the cut to give me a good finish. So we go with the same kind of volume. I'm getting the feel of the slice, but I'm not going to get a perfect finish at this stage, because I haven't done anything to get a perfect finish. I've got something that's going to give me an okay finish, but you can see she's still a bit rotten there. So I'm going to pass this around, is showing it as an aggressive cut. And I'm going to part it off. So this is just a regular parting tool. Anybody here own a diamond parting tool? Well, diamond parting tool kind of junk. So whoever invented the diamond parting tool didn't know anything about parting in. The reason for that is the diamond parting tool, as I ground this tool, I was able to put a burr on either side and on the bottom. So when she parts in, she'll self-clear. The diamond parting tool can never self-clear. This guy can try to go back all the way in and clear its own weight. Okay, so you can see the fast cut with the gouge where I didn't bother to take any time to do a good cut. Oh, don't want to sleep. We'll wake it up later. I was doing a demo one time. My dad was doing a demo one time after lunchtime, which is the hard time to do a demo because he's got a full stomach, they're a bit sleepy. And I wanted to sneak in and watch my dad demo, so I thought I'd sneaked in on the side. He hadn't spotted me, but my dad had spotted me, you see. And this gentleman, he was asleep to the side. And my dad just kept looking at me as if to say, hey Stu, you know, nudge him and wake him up. And I'm like, just ignoring my dad. And so this goes on for a couple of minutes, and Dad keeps looking over to say, you know, wake the guy up. Well, now everybody knows the guy's asleep because he's snoring. See? So he's snoring away there. So my dad says, Stu, you got to wake that guy up for me. And I says, no, Dad, I don't have to wake him up. My dad says, why not? I says, look, Dad, I didn't put him to sleep. You did. You didn't wake him up. Okay. All right. So here's something important. I'm going to do a cut across the face here. And you can see that the wood is folded, and I'm going to be able to, I can pick the kind of finish I want on here. I'm going to spin this with this grind is kind of noisy when it fires up. Just make sure she's sharp, because the sharp wood is critical. So hopefully the camera will pick this up. I'm going to do as perfect a cut as I can on here, so I'm going to take my speed up higher. So I'm running at 2300. If this was a bigger block, I wouldn't be running this fast. Okay, so 2300. I get through the middle, tiny bit higher. But what I'm going to do here, the more I close the flute, the better the finish, but the harder it is to do the cut, because the ring doesn't produce this nice kind of chip, but it will give me a better finish. So I'm getting a more vertical cut across the face. You know it's funky, but this last one around, you can see how funky it was. Now it doesn't like clearing the side grain, but it really likes finishing the end grain. So you can see the difference in finish. And I'll part this one off and pass it around. And then I'm going to show you that we have an option when we're cutting as to how we want to cut it. And it's all this to do with wrist rotation. So I didn't make it perfectly flat, but that's okay. I was more showing the technique and how what we're doing here is we're getting how even on a funky piece of wood, you can really slice it. So, doing the same cut again, I'm just going to change a couple of dimensions here. I'm going to reduce my lathe speed down, not slow, 1800. I'm going to cut a little bit faster, and I'm going to open the flute and watch how the cut deteriorates. So now I'm going to have an open flute. I'm going to cut a little bit faster. Now it's easier to do this cut because it's cutting and feeding really fast. I get this beautiful chip. There we go. There it is. See? Got this beautiful chip, but not always ideal because I tore the grain. See? The holes all over it. So I'll pass this around. And I'll show you what I've got in options. So what it takes to make a really good cut. Now this little parting tool is starting to get dull. So that's one where I cut the fast. It's still not a bad finish. You can see it wasn't able to eliminate the tone grain, the funky grain. So here's what we've got the option for here with the gouge. Now remember, if this gouge was ground on a jig, the option I'm going to show you cannot be done. So I'm going to take the gouge and I'm going to spin it on its axis like this. Not like this, but like this. And that means that my handle stays in exactly the same position, and I can open the flute and I can close the flute. Now, as we go across, the more I open the flute, the further it throws the tip and the easier it is to cut like this. It's more aggressive. The more it makes it punky. So it's really hacking it out here to make the mess. The more I close the flute, the harder it is to do the cut, but the better the finish. Doesn't throw the tip. Because now the wing of the gouge is purely peeling, but I'm getting a more vertical slice with the nose. So I eliminate the torn grain, but I'm just making more chips. So depending on the wood, depends on how I open and close the throttle to get the finish I want. And then here, from here, we're looking to get a good finish. I would take my speed up faster, still within the same speed. Now it's a little slower, keeping the tip more vertical. Didn't get as good a peel, but I got a better slice. So what the gouge is able to do, it's able to slice with the nose, peel with the wing. Alright, let's throw on the honey locust and show it that. Now, we're only doing straight cuts right now, so when we go across in this direction, it's a perfect peel. The problem comes is what happens when we start to create shape. So clean this up. So the honey locust is a lot more forgiving. 1, it's wet. 2, it's dense. 3, it's not spalted. So to cut this particular wood, super easy to get a really good finish on this. I don't have to add the gouge quite as close to the fruit position. I can get a really nice finish on this material, even though it's a little bit of what I would call open grained wood. I'll peel this off, so I'll pass that around. Okay, so even the piling off didn't tear the wood as much. It's much more forgiving. You can feel it's pretty damn wet.
You said you have to sharpen that by hand.
What was the question, sorry?
You have to sharpen that by hand. You can't use a jig on it.
Right. Well, when you sharpen with a jig for spindle gouge, it's great. When you use a jig, spindle gouge is a radius, and the jig is pivoting on a single point. When you pivot on a single point, it is also a radius. So when you sharpen your spindle gouge on a one-way Wolverine or all those other ones that have single pivot points, yes, you can get a perfect sharpen with jig or with freehand if you get it freehand. When you sharpen a bull gouge, it can't be done with a jig. Not currently, not even. You can get pretty close with the Johannes Mikkelsen jig, but it's still not quite as good as freehand sharpening. And the reason for that is the manufacturer, whatever they gave us, we must mimic the inside shape. So we have 2 problems with the grind I'm using. And it doesn't matter whether you have a 40-40 like I do, which means I have a 40-degree wing angle, a 40-degree bevel, or whether you have this at a different angle in this design. It doesn't matter, you still have the same problem. The problem is, what we're looking for is we've got to do this angled grind, and join them together whilst following an elliptical shape. On the inside it's more elliptical than this, would look more like this. That's the inside of a gouge. So we have to follow this shape, so we're twisting to match the shape, whilst swinging to match the wings. So we twist for the flute, we swing for the wing. So we put the camera on, I'll show you how it works. I'll use the one-way gouge. Now, every manufacturer is different, so even if somebody made the perfect jig for doing this one-way gouge, it's not going to be the same as this gouge, because this is a different manufacturer. And it's not going to be the same as the Doug Thompson, which is a V. So when we're freehand sharpening, we do have the luxury of being able to follow the shape we have. Now Tom's got this one marked on here, so he's got the lines marked on here. So let me just mark him on the other one, because I know platforms are set differently. I don't want to mark it too much, because I don't want to permanently mark his platforms, because it does sink in. So this is permanent, it's going to non-permanent.
Stu, you can go ahead and mark it. I can't read your writing anyway.
Okay, thanks. Very good, I marked Tom's here, right? There it is. There. So I took an angle gauge. We could use a protractor, it doesn't have to be an angle gauge. So there's a 40 and a 40. What those are, they're what set this angle here. So what I have here, if we draw this, we've got a 40-degree angle here at the tangent. That's 40 degrees, that's a cutting edge angle. By the way, when I say 40 degrees, nobody gives a damn whether it's 41, 42, 39, 38. When we start bothering is when we get -5 or +5, then things change. It's a bit like I was flying, I've been flying a lot recently, more than I like. I know I've never flown as much as Melinda, but Melinda's flown over what, a million and a half miles? Yeah, I'm not even close. But Melinda and you guys, anybody's ever flown, you know that sometimes they land the plane and they don't wake you up, you know? And then the other week I was asleep and the guy landed the plane. I'm amazed the landing gear wasn't embedded in the runway. He hit the runway so hard that it probably did damage the gear. It was the hardest landing. I've probably done 500 to 1,000 landings. I used to fly around Africa all the time, so I used to take off and land a lot there. But at least they were landing on dirt runways, so there's a little bit of give, you know, on a dirt runway. But he hit it so hard, so angles made a difference. So, the same here, we can have, the pilot has the option of plus or minus 1 or 2 degrees. He doesn't have a plus or minus 10 degrees, because 10 degrees the wrong angle, he's going to overshoot the wrong way, or 10 degrees the other way, he's going to snap off the landing gear. And wood turning is the same. We've got this plus or minus. My dad used to work between 35 and 45, which is fine. But we want to be in the middle. Piggy in the middle, sweet spot, whatever you want to call it. And the other reason we want to be 40 here is if this angle becomes too much, if it becomes 50 or it becomes 30, it changes how it peels away the wood, the waste. And we need the peel after the tip is cut. Does that make sense? So right now, this is the surface it's cutting. The tip right here is cutting just before this line here engages. So that would be 90 degrees. So what you're getting is you're getting a slice, your skew chisel, and then your parting tool is following right behind it and peeling it off. But if they were together, in other words, this was 40, 50, it would be peeling as it's slicing. And now it's damaging the surface at the same time as it's slicing it. You don't get as good a finish. And it also doesn't create a V and lock the tool in the cut. So I'll show you how I created this 40-40 grind. By the way, this is an evolution of sharpening and turning. When I used to do all these cuts with my dad when I was a kid, they were always done with a spindle gouge. But the spindle gouge is lousy at this cut, and I'll show you why in a minute. But let's just show how I got there. So we saw that I did 40 from the top down, 40 from the top down. And that's where it's a starting point on this side, is I come up to the line, and then I choose how much I rotate it. This is a critical bit. When the inside of that flute is parallel with this rest, then parallel, it's not pointing downhill, it's not pointing uphill, I then bring it up the line and I follow it. Follow, drop to the tip. I follow the inside shape, let's do the other side. I'm following the inside shape at that angle, and then when I get the tip, I drop and blend it. That is the 40-40 grind. Now, it's not as easy to do as I'm making it look. Okay? Alright, you guys know that. Okay. But by the way, Cindy Drozda, who we all know Cindy, has a great video on this online on YouTube. It's free, guys. Cindy created it from taking a class from me. By the way, I would rank Cindy possibly top 10 in the world, woodturners. And I dare never say top 10 females, but females and males, top 10. No matter whether males or females, she's top 10. But she takes classes off me, not because she's going to get me better, but she took classes to just have a better understanding of how she could turn so well. Because she, of all the 7 fundamentals, was not breaking any of the rules. She is sharpening like I am, she's cutting like I am. We don't turn 2 different styles. We don't even use different grinds. She uses the exact same grinds as I do. She's getting the same achievement. I mean, she makes some of the finest work in the world. So we're doing the same thing. So she created a video about the bowl gouge. Watch it. It's got all the information you need on it. It lets you know about how much to rotate it and swing it and stuff. It's a really good video, and it's free. So that's a 40-40 grind.
Is that on Vimeo or YouTube?
It's on YouTube. YouTube, not Vimeo. I don't believe she has it on video. I think it's just on YouTube. It's old as well. I think she shot it at least 6 or 7 years ago. So this is a spindle gouge. Let me sharpen the spindle gouge. It's a little different. So let's show the difference between the spindle and the bowl. Remember, the spindle gouge is non-elliptical flute. So I want to sharpen what's called 30-40. I want the wings to be 30 degrees back. So that means this 40-degree line, instead of going to the 40-degree line, I'm going to go past it. So I go past the line, and this is an easy gouge to sharpen. Much easier than the bowl gouge, because all I do is swing and twist equally all the time. Swing, twist, swing, twist. That is not the same for the bowl gouge. The bowl gouge is follow the wing, follow the wing, follow the wing, drop to the nose. Follow the wing, drop to the nose. It's a lot more difficult because it's not a radius, it's an ellipse. So I'm not just creating a twist. This one I'm just twist, swing. This one is I am dropping, 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 drop the nose, dropping, dropping, drop the nose. It's a lot more difficult. But it can be done pretty good with the hand mixel jig, although you said you were having some problems with it. We don't know why. And the other two jigs you can do is the one-way jig that has that can slide, has the bar on the bell grind, and it slides to one side, slides to the other, and so can the tall neck. Any jig that can slide the tool over whilst you do the wing, slide it over and do the wing, is allowing 2 pivot points. I'm doing 3, but they're doing 2. So how I'm doing the grind is I'm doing, show the elliptical. It's basically 3 arcs. If you look at the elliptical, it's more complex than that in reality, but get close. What we've got in our elliptical gouge is we have the tight radius here, which is basically, it wouldn't be a perfect radius, but it might be close. And then here is a big radius, like that's almost flat, It's a tight radius, so if you do the wing, and join them, then you get pretty close. That's the way to do it. Okay, but the reason it's very effective, if we look with the camera right now, what it's able to do is this very, very good thing of peeling and slicing at the same time. Find out where I put it. Which the spindle gouge cannot do. In fact, let's do the spindle gouge first. What happens when I try to do the exact same cut with the spindle gouge? And I'm going to take advantage of moving my tool rest around. So you might think the spindle gouge is great. So the spindle gouge is a bit like a roughing gouge. It's really good when the volume is small. We're going across the grain here. So when I take a small volume, this tool is exceptional. Right now, it's great. Close in, beautiful finish, fast cut, great. But it's working like a skew chisel. I took off a tiny amount. Watch what happens if I treble that volume. She doesn't like it. Doesn't like it, not because she's going to flex, because she's no longer cutting side grain. Watch what she's cutting. She's forming a V. And that's all because, remember I said before about the tool, not just the angle it's cutting at, it's the shape. And so what I was getting here was with the bull gouge, and when I was cutting across the surface with the bull gouge, I was cutting in at about this angle, this amount of V. So primarily that's still mainly side grain. When I'm cutting in with the spindle gouge, I'm cutting in at that angle. My gouge is looking more like this. It's not cutting, it's not peeling side grain, it's scraping end grain. That's the difference. Can you see the difference in the powder? I was just getting powder. What happens we take remember they both have the exact same bevel, so we show that with the handle position, they're exactly the same. Slicing action, that's what it was. So if you look at the tools here, they're both in exactly the same position. That's the position. They're 40 degrees from this up. So we show you the difference between the two. See how this one is really effective in cutting this way? And this one, not so effective. So this one is great when the volume is small, because it's just a small amount of side grain. Increase the volume, and it becomes end grain. And then you take bull gouge, because the wings are at a different angle, I get a peel. I get this stuff, which is what we want. So I'll show you the 4 other cuts before I run out of wood, and then I'll do a quick pull. Because on a bowl, what a lot of them like to do. It's not all of us are spindle turners. My background is spindle turning. So if I want to do an angle cut, I lift and push. I don't go in flat like this. Watch it, I go flat. I get a powder again. Full powder. So I get the peel from coming down. Peel. 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 If I'm doing concave, I'm going to do convex. I'm doing the same. I'm staying on top and I'm peeling away the waste. Always peeling away my waste. I'm getting these long tips. My tool is the best one in a slightly better position here. I can do one system. Here we go. Okay. I'm so far back, I'm not able to. Yes?
If you're using a jig, you're not going to get straight sides, you're going to get curves. Does that mess up the cut you're talking about?
Yes. So think about it, it doesn't mess it up chronic, but it's not the same. If I was to have a parting tool, this nice wide one here, which you can see on the camera here, we wouldn't want this cutting edge at the front to be curved, would we? Because as you part in, only the very center would be cutting side grain. In fact, it's a really good question. Let's just draw it on the board because whilst we're talking about it. So this is our block of wood here in the lathe. Let's throw a 10 in on it so we know which way we're going. So the grain's running this direction. If my parting tool, let's do it a different color, was curved like that, the only bit of the parting tool that's cutting side grain is right there. The further around I get, it's end grain, end grain, end grain, end grain. See, only there is it at 90 degrees to the side grain. So if you curve your wing on your gouge, when you're doing this peel cut in that I'm doing right now, you're not peeling side grain the same. You're peeling more end grain, which is that rule, which is it just doesn't cut as efficiently. Ideally, the perfect two tools would be your skew chisel about a 30-second ahead of your parting tool falling right behind it. The problem is if you try and take a larger volume off the skew chisel, you know what happens. With the skew, it gets stuck. So if I try and take a large volume of the skew, it just gets stuck. So here, that's a small volume. Oops, let's get in the right position. There's a small volume, no problems. Large volume, stuck. Which is the same as your little spindle gouge, large volume, stuck. Parting tool, which is going to give you a lousy finish, doesn't get stuck. This is the wing of our bowl gouge, it just peels. And that's what our bowl gouge does, it just peels. And he wants to skid, it just skids. But the advantage with the bowl gouge, whoever invented it was a genius, because it just doesn't work with a spindle gouge. Even if you took your wings further forward on a spindle gouge, there's no separation between nose and wing. So whoever came up with this idea of separating this as a parting tool to a very sharp radius was very smart. If it was just a radius, the separation between here and here is not great enough. It doesn't give the same cut. Even if you take your spindle gouge and my spindle gouge at the minute looks like this. The wings are back at 30 degrees. But even if I took them back at 40, it's still not as effective. It's very shallow. The depth of cut is only this. The depth of cut on this guy is this, even with the same size bar. So spindle gouges are great for finesse, getting into tight spaces, finish cuts, coves, but when it comes to removing bulk, nothing beats a bowl gouge. And, you know, I'd love to be able to say I was the inventor of the elliptical fluted bowl gouge, but I'm not, because I'm not 150 years old, and 2, even my dad wasn't that old, so it wouldn't be him either. But, so whoever invented it was very smart. The V-fluted gouge by Thompson is really good, but it has a slight flaw. He doesn't have a mill his V's deep enough. So it's always a bit shallow. I'd like to see him mill him deeper. He's got the right V angle, and the V gives you an almost perfect peel to slice. So if you look at a V, you'll do it pink. It gives you the perfect parting tool, tight radius, the perfect parting tool. But the downside is, as humans, we are lousy at joining straight and curved. And our tool starts to look like this. Right there, we get this little bird's peak, right here. Because when we go from here to here, we can stall on the grinder, even with the jig, we end up with this bird's peak. Or, what Doug Thompson does to avoid it, he uses a jig, and he ends up with a rounded wing. But we know we don't want a rounded wing, because a rounded wing can't peel. It's not the same. Alright, are we on time? Let's do this, and then I'll make a bowl. So let me just do a nice cut on this, see if I can actually make a nice cut. Okay, so we'll go to the end. I'll pass this around. So this is a spherical cut. It is not the most difficult cut in wood turning, but it is the most complex cut in wood turning. And the reason it's the most complex cut in wood turning is that I'm doing 4 things at once, and each must remain in conjunction with the others. And what I mean by that is, I'm pushing for distance, I'm lifting to get to the center, I'm swinging for curvature, and I'm twisting for grain. And if any one of those 4 is out of sync with the others, you go straight, and it doesn't become a domed cut. Okay, I couldn't make it perfectly spherical because I'm out of, there wasn't enough wood left. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw a bowl up. Okay, so we've done that in spindle turning. We can see that the bowl gouge, it's a phenomenal tool. I mean, I love the elliptical fluted bow caps. The 40-40 grind is my grind. My dad and other people used to have the wings further forwards and things like that. But the 40-40 was just I'll make it work. Was an evolution of time. My dad used to have the wings further forwards, and then other people had the wings further back, which were really curved. And I didn't like either. And so I realized I wanted to get the peel, like I showed you, I wanted to peel at the same time. But when the wings are further forwards, it's peeling before the nose is cut. And when the wings are further back, the wings are peeling too late. Okay, so this is honey locust, it's pretty wet, which we know. You can see if I can block the worm passing around. And I'm going to take this down the round, I'm going to shape it. So, that's nice. I've used a lot of these recently where it gets stuck here. I can get it over. Okay, so now remember what we've done, we've taken our pencil. I'm not sure I put that pencil, here it is. We took the pencil block and we spun it 90 degrees. Thanks to great camera work, because he's used to work with me, I move real fast, and I honestly don't want to be my cameraman. Because it's like I'm here and there. Yeah. But you've done camera work with what, 3, 4, 5 times?
Yeah.
Okay, so taking this down the round, really important that we don't put pressure on the bevel. You know, we hear this saying, rub the bevel, rub the bevel. Nobody means rub the bevel, they mean float the bevel. Rubbing means I put weight on it and then this cut would be horrible. So I'll just take the speed down a little bit up. Okay, it sounds faster than it is, it's just a 1200, that's about right for this. Okay, so if I rub the bevel, it's going to beat the hell out of me. But if I float it, I can just cut across without it beating up. And I'm going to do this left-handed. The reason I'm going to do left-handed is I can tell it's going to hit by the tip. So the tip can hit something else if I move. So the exact same technique right over there, or I'm here, I just don't want to get hit with the chips. So I'm going to avoid it. And get it down the line. So it didn't beat me up, I got down the round, and I'm going to put some shape in it. What I am going to do though, is I'm going to change the pulleys, because she's on the high-speed pulley, and so I was losing a lot of power there. So I'm going to take it, drop it down. Get the dog to the wall now.
Good job, buddy.
Thank you. Hope your team wins. The rest of you guys all got DVRs or something?
Or don't care.
Oh, don't care. Okay. Is it feeling fiddly? Yeah, I'm just changing the pulley, but it doesn't want to go. There we go, got it. Alright, so it was on the high-speed pulley, which meant I was only getting probably half the power at the revs I was at. Okay, so it'll sound faster than this because of the motor, but it isn't. It's just the motor sounding faster than it is. Now, to be truthful, people do all sorts of ways of shaping the outside of the bowl, but ideally, they should just push around. The problem with pushing around, it's a skill-based cut, so it takes a little bit of learning, but it's giving you that vertical slice with the nose and the peel with the wing, which you saw I did on the end grain before, which is exactly what we want. So I'm just doing the exact same thing, except instead of going in this direction, I've turned the bowl 90 degrees, I'm going to go in this direction. Same technique. Same cut as I just did doing the spherical cut, but going in the opposite direction. Okay, so here, I'm just going to peel off the bottom so I'm not starting on a bouncy surface, so just peel that off. I'm going to cut the corner off. And the reason I'm cutting the corner off, that's where I want to put my tool rest, right in that spot there. Okay, leverage. So leverage, use the end handle.
I'm going to swing it down.
I just back a little bit. Yeah, if you don't mind it swinging down. You know, swing right out of the way. I demonstrated in Texas, not this year, but last year. So we didn't have a screen in front, now they make us have a screen. So I was working on a big mark and I was doing an off-center square bowl. It had a really small bowl. So I'm doing this inside this little small bowl, and the crowd was sitting even closer than this, really close. So as I start the cut here, in the inside now, all of a sudden, my gouge is trapped between the tailstock and the bowl, and I can't go anywhere. And I get a catch, I jump back, I get a catch, and then I blow it up, and I'm like, what just happened? I said, I could have sworn I moved the tailstock. And the guy sitting there said, sorry, I put it back, it was in my way. So he moved it back as I went in, because he didn't realize the handle was going to swing, because I hit it. Yeah, anyway. You know the difference between genius and stupidity, don't you? Genius has limits. So anyway, it's just one of those things that I just had to tell you, because you couldn't make that stuff up, could you? Okay, so this cut here, so the reason this cut is a little bit critical is what I do with my left. I'm actually holding it down with my left, and that's where this cut is quite critical. And it's pretty knotty piece of wood. So there's a little bit of aggressive in places, it's often not stuck. If I'm holding down with my left without pushing against the wood surface,
Cutting from the bottom to the top.
I'm cutting from the bottom of the tip to the bottom wing.
Cut downhill.
No, I'm cutting so the fibers are getting taller as I go up. And when the fibers are getting taller like that, it's always more forgiving than if you're just going straight across the end here. So you always get a little bit of forgiveness. One thing worth noting here is that I don't have any body contact against the gouge handle. I just let it swing. So I'm sliding on the bevel, I'm sliding or gliding on the bevel. Just give me a very clean finish on here, so I don't have any torn grain at all. But I do have a bit of a crazy grain, so I've got a big knot right here, see it? So it's like having a double amount of end grain there. Okay, one more cut, you'd see this. Well, so one more cut, then I'll sharpen the gouge, and then we'll hollow it out. So that's the end of my cut here. Get close. So this is quite around. My left hand is not really doing much. It's just holding it down. It's not influencing the path of the tool. What it's influencing is the weight of the tool. Making the tool very heavy at the front. Okay, one sharpen on this, and we'll do the last cut. Sorry about the noise, this guy does make a unusual noise when it starts up. Now, even though this is a pretty exotic steel, this is CPM M4, it's not the most exotic steel we use, it still dulls. You know, every 90 seconds is 1 mile of chips, guys. That's a lot of chips. Because usually we're cutting at about 40 miles an hour on a block this size. Now, you can't get 40 miles an hour on a pen blank. You can probably get about 25 miles an hour surface speed, because none of our lathes are running 12,000 RPM. But on this particular piece, I'm running the max 1250 is the max speed I can do on this pulley. So, if I wanted a little bit faster, I can't have it. So what I've got to do is cut a little bit slower. So, if I can't have more speed with the lathe, cut a little slower with the tool. I'm going to my finish cut. And nice enough, there's not a lot of energy. I'm sliding on the bevel. My weight is currently on my right foot, and now as the gouge starts to get close to my body, I'm transferring my weight towards my left. And I go around the corner, and then go slightly downhill. Oops. I just reposition my tool rest there. Pick that up. I hit something on the wood. I felt like I hit a piece of steel. Yeah, something in the wood. You see, just jump out the cut. What is it? Right where the bark is, see it? There's some grit in there. You see the tool just failed right where the bark line is? It just completely failed. So, somewhere in the bark, remember this is a city. Oh, yeah, I can feel my gauge is gone. There's a notch in it. So, let me just, yeah, there's something in there. So, yeah, there's not like it. We'll resharpen it. So remember when it's a city tree, it's different if it grew in a field, but in a city tree, what ends up happening is cars are driving past it, and every time it rains, the cars splashing concrete and dust into the bark of the tree. So that bit of bark there, something got embedded, and it failed right at the point where I hit the bark. So hopefully it's not going to make it fail the whole way around. So I'm going to pick it a little bit further back. Oh man, we're doing much better. Oh, that's the feeling. One of those times where whatever's in the bar is tougher than the cutting edge of the tool. It's leaving it right there, it's leaving a ridge. So somewhere in that bar, there's a piece of dirt. Could just be a bit of grit. Yeah, something in there. Okay, so can't get it out with the gouge, so here, negative rake scraping. Why not? Gouge doesn't like it, it's just in the one spot. So taking the skew chisel, I'm going to put a burr across the whole face. And then lift it. See it? There it is. And I'm just going to finish with the negative rake. Got no choice. Because to try and cut it again with a gouge, I'm going to take too much off. And I'm just going to negative rake scrape it. Now the reason for the negative rake is it's going to blend my shaking from here. Is it'll make it harder to get the chisel fail, then I'll just use a different part of the chisel. The negative rake, I only use it when I have to in this particular case, because it's a pretty simple shaped bowl. By the way, so I was watching a demo, I didn't interrupt the demo, so it was one in Texas, and the guy says, negative rake scraping and regular scraping are the same thing, you just lift the handle. And I'm like, oh, I guess he doesn't know what negative rake scraping is. It is not the same thing. You don't just lift the handle. If you just lift the handle, it's still a scraper. Negative rake scraping has to have a double angle. It's a double angle that counts. I got it there. So I got to pick this one. Make sure we tighten that. I'm just going to shorten it a little bit, give me a slightly bigger fit place and get rid of the defective bottom. Now I'm just going to put a tenon in. Just use a smaller gouge. And the tenon again, with the 40-40 grind, I can just put the tenon in directly into the gouge, like so. Because it gives me a slight undercut. Yeah, so those of you that aren't familiar with negative rake scraping, it's a very effective tool. Tom is very good with it on his platters because he's able to get an exceptional finish with it. He takes a little more time with it than I do because he's looking to keep his sanding to an absolute minimum because platters are less forgiving. You've got such open fibers in the very center, and if you don't get a perfect finish off the tool, and you've got to finish it with sanding, then you'll feel the undulations. Much more so with a bowl, you're able to keep the curvature always going, but on a platter, the center is a lot more difficult than on this little bowl I'm doing. So in Tom's negative rake scraping, he's getting to the point. What grit do you start with, Tom? Usually?
40.
No, you don't even know that.
Typically around 120.
Okay, you still start, yeah.
I've learned that if you start with higher, and there is any flaw anywhere, you get up to about 300 and you see the flaw. If you start with 120, you don't have that problem.
Yeah, so what Tom's talking about there is you might think you've got a perfect cut, and so you think, oh, today I'm going to do with 220, 320, is you'll just, as you sand it, it'll feel great, but as you get to the finished one, you'll then see the imperfections in your original cut. And there's no such thing as a perfect cut, so you've got to sand. And what the sanding is doing is perfecting, is bringing the cut to as perfect as it can be. But if you start with too low a grade, too high a grade, then you amplify. And if you start with too low a grade, then any sharp edges or what have you get messed up. So the better you can do straight off the tool, the better the shape. Let me see if I can jam check this guy. Ooh, we're going to be in the jam check there.
So you put a 40-degree grind on both sides of your negative rake?
20 and 20, which makes 40.
Oh.
So it's a skew chisel. So it's 20 plus 20 makes 40. So this platform's set at 20, which I did the chisel on. This one's set at 40.
Okay.
Because remember with the gouge, we only grind it in one direction. Yeah. So here was what we want to do with this bowl. It's got a defect, and it's just probably, we'll see if it survives, is we want to cut. Every cut wants to go in this direction 90 degrees if you can. The more I cut in that direction, like here, I get this big peel, these nice big chips. That's what I'm looking for. And push it out. So you see the perfect size here. So I get these really nice big chunky chips. That's the perfect cut. The problem is, now I can't go anywhere. There's no space, there's nowhere to go. So I've got to create a V cut. This is making space. Now, it's still going to give me primarily side grain. You see, I'm still getting pretty big chips, but it's not perfect side grain. There's some end grain involved now because I'm going at an angle. So there's a little bit of end grain there, but not too much. And the deeper I get, the more I can start bringing the handle down and going in a little bit straighter. Time for a longer handle. So, big fan of leverage. Okay, so now as I go in this direction, I get back to perfect side grain. So I've got my wing on my gouge going in basically 90 degrees or close enough to the face of the bowl. It gives me these really big chips, and that's fun. If I was coming across at this angle, you see it's not enough time. That's not fun. We want to go in as straight as possible. There's a price to pay for the best seat in the house. You can hear some loud going on a bit, that models, so that's good to hear them hitting a lot. Doesn't like it, get more side. What's in there? Let's have a look and see what I'm actually cutting so I know. Oh, there it is. Back to that bark. You see it? There's a ring of bark. Right there. So that bark goes right through the big ring of bark. It doesn't like it. Whatever's in that bark is pretty gnarly. Because it's, you feel it killing the edge real quick. It doesn't like it at all. Here's the gouge. Not cutting the same. Here is fine. Take the bark. Let's just get it out. This is CPM 10V I'm using too. So this is the most exotic steel we use in wood spinning, and the edge is completely gone off my gouge. So obviously this was a city tree. It grew right by a roadside, right on I think it was on Mapleton in Boulder. So every time a car's gone past it in the rain, you hear it's fine. And it doesn't like when you get the bark. So right there, you can see we're right into the bark again, this bark area. It's crazy bark, because usually the bark will dull the tool, but it doesn't usually kill it. So one more time. I'm only sharpening the bottom of the tool. In fact, let's just change out for a second, because I don't, that one's sharp. I'll keep that one for whatever it is, and let's use this big monster. Get rid of some of the wood out there, and then, so she's going to be fine at the bottom of it, she's cutting grade. You see it? Grade cut, no problem. Back in the bar. Very soft through the bar. Not like that bar. Being the roughest on the cutting edge I've ever seen a block of wood. It's just ripping the cutting edge off. So I'm cutting the grain fine. So now what I'm going to do before I take it any thinner, one, I'm going to shorten the bowl a tiny bit because there's a split here. You can see it right here. I'm going to take that out because that's going to pop. So I'll take that out, I'm going to cut sideways with a sharp tool. I'm not going to do it in one pass, I'm going to do it in a couple of light passes like this. That's why I made it thin from, you can hear the bark there. I made it thin from the outside on the inside. Okay, and I hope that I can get through far enough down with this before it fails. It's definitely going to make the cutting edge of this bowl. So here it is, you get to the top of the bowl, and what the wood wants to do when you're using a gouge as opposed to a scraper is it wants to flex away from the cut. So right here I'm going to use a tape on the outside, place my gouge into the cut, tight, clean the bevel so I can see it, line it up the outside, get it into the cut. You'll see to get through the box. You do a little slower than before. But again, I'm trying to put sideways as much as possible. As I get on the corner, the grain is changing direction. But I'm going to close the flute slightly because now my wing is starting to face towards the end grain. Pushing with about 8 pounds of pressure, maybe it's 10 pounds of pressure. That is a lot. Yeah. Where the bark is, you can see she's just collapsing away. But you can see that I cut through the grain here without any torn grain at all in this area. But the bark is just where it is, it's just falling out. But we'll leave it as it is, and let's go across the bottom. So I don't have any bark across the bottom. So the problem we've got now, going back to grain, we have a different challenge. As I go around the corner, the 40-40 gouge becomes the worst tool you could ever use on a bow. It's great at the top of the bow, and then it becomes lousy. So the outside of the bow, it has no problems doing all of the outside. So all of the outside is not a problem. What ends up happening is we come around the corner here. When we get to here, the grain changes direction. Right now, this is primarily we're cutting side grain. So we can see we're peeling side grain. So that's the wing of my gouge. It's coming around the corner, it's peeling. But as we get around the corner, what's ends up happening, this wing is now facing in this direction. And that's facing towards the end grain. And as you can see, she doesn't like it. So I have to close the flute to prevent it from grabbing. So here I can run into this one with scraping. You see it scraping? We're about to open the flute, she would catapult the tool and grab it in here. Because that's a complete pane of blue. And then that is a pure wall. That black bit is a pure wall of end grain. So what's really good at cutting that is what's called a bottom bowl gouge. And that's where we took the wing of the gouge, instead of it being back, it's forwards. So instead of being back here, it's forwards. So what ends up happening is this one goes around the corner, the wing is hitting the end grain. As this one goes around the corner, the wing is so far forwards, it can only cut in front of itself. It can't cut to the side. So it doesn't have access to the end grain. And that's what makes this tool, in fact, it's easy to use a longer handle. Great. The bottom bowl gouge has been around for a while, different variations of it. Basically, it's got a slightly duller angle, about 50 to 60 degree angle, so that I can get around the corner without hitting the rim of the bow. And to use this tool, I'm looking to grip it in a different way. I'm not looking to use any grip at the front. I might grip it initially because she kicks right here until she gets going. So she's grabbing onto ridges, and then once she gets going, she slides by herself. So gripping, then I do grip, gripping again. So you see she's cutting, she's making side grain chips. Through what kind of chips she's making, so grab them. So because the wings are forward, I get some of the chips. I'm getting these long chips. I'm back to cutting side grain. If I pick up my 40-40 gouge, you know, to use it at all, you'll see I can't get that kind of chip. I'll be getting powder. Just powder. Because if I open the flute, she would grab. So the 40-40 doesn't work here, so we go back to using what I would call a 60, it's probably got a 60 degree bevel on it, and the wings are about 9 degrees to 85. They're almost vertical. They're not quite vertical. Now, everybody has a problem when they're learning this gouge, because what they do is they grip the bar, and when you grip it, you put something behind it. When you put anything behind it, you start poking it like this. See? And do the properly well, because I'm poking it. I'm pulling it with my thumb. So we want to do the slide bevel. So once you've got the initial grip, you release it and press down. And the cut is formed by a swing. I'm standing up half of the back of the handle. And you can hear also there's a knot in there as well. I certainly picked a pretty gnarly piece from the demo piece with a knot down there, I can feel it. Oh, there it is, that's a beauty, see it? So technically speaking, I'm cutting uphill into a bit of end grain. So either way, I'm getting beaten up, so there's no winning with this bow. Right, next time I'm going to be more choosy about the piece I did. I wondered why the piece was still there. I taught a class recently, and I'm going like, well, I kept some pieces left. And I'm going like, I'm pretty sure I used it all. And now I realize why I never used it in the class, because it would have been such a pig to use in the class, but now I know why. So this cut is not that difficult. As long as I'm on the path of the tool, there's the finish. I'm a right foot forward, left foot back. I lean into the bow, and then I swing around. Now I go above center and I finish down onto the center generally. That's where I'm hitting that knot. So one more cut, you can get right through it. You can hear the knot clicking there. That's too big a volume at the end there. Keeping in mind that the bowl is rotating really slow at the middle, so I need to take a lighter volume at the very end. So slow the cut down, slower volume. And to get to the middle, sometimes I'll wiggle it. The reason I'm wiggling it is I can't see the last cut right here, and I need to get the very center of the tool through the very center, or you miss it. So if I can't see it because of the chips, I'll actually just do this little wiggle. That way I'm guaranteed somewhere to get through as I go through. I think we'll forward one more cut with the 40-40. One more sharp. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to extend the original cut down. Let's just remember not to check it whilst it's running because it's got holes in it. So I'm going to go back to using this guy, take it down a little bit further. Put it down, and swap out to this guy. There's that wiggle to get through the middle. I think I got it. Yep. Let's see if it's good enough to, or if I can need one more cut. Okay, so you can see we're dealing with bark, but all that bark that I was having problems with is gone. I only have a tiny bit left. So I'm going to cut it one more time. I've got enough material for one more cut. So it's an important cut. Let's give it a quick touch up. Now, probably if this didn't have the bark in it, I probably wouldn't be sharpening this guy at this stage. But there's definitely something in there. So I'm not happy with the entire finish there. And let's go one more time. So, cleaning up the surface. Now, I've got a little bit of a mark here where I didn't blend it very well, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go further back. Now, the problem I've got is the bowl is warped. You can hear it. So, I want to float on the highest point of the warpage. So, I want to float on that, float on it, and pick up the cut, and float it into that cut, so there's no blend mark. Keep this cut nice and slow. The further I get this one down if I can, as far as it wants to go, then I pick up and finish it with this guy. And you can hear I actually overwork the bevel, and I create a little bit of balance there. Sometimes that'll transfer into the next cut. It might have done it. There's that wiggle. That's okay. Now, so I'll pass this round and then open it up for a few questions. But you can see this bowl probably wouldn't be one I would save normally because we've got this big defect in it. It's pretty light. But you can see the one thing is I've got tool marks, but I don't have any torn grain. So any of these marks would stand up pretty easy on that little guy.
And you're sharpening that down.
The other one? Sure, let me show you that. Pretty simple. I'm going to use a 40-40 platform. I'm not going to bother to change it because it takes too long. All I generally do is I'll come up and I'll put my finger on the tool rest. I'll do the height and I just spin it. That's it. And I grind the heel off at 40. But it will be heel. It's, I wouldn't say it's identical, but very similar, yes. The similarity is very close, it would be very similar. Except the roughing gouge would stay exactly perpendicular when you rotate it, because we don't want the wings back at all. If we get the camera in here, I'm about 5 degrees back from vertical. But remember, the more I start bringing the wings back, the more it starts to interact with the end grain, and the more I start to have problems controlling the tool. And that's why this one, when it came around the corner, because the wings were so far back, it interacts with the end grain, I can't control the tool. So that's why it's such a good tool, but it's a specialist tool. It only has 2 areas in wood turning we can possibly ever use it. The last third of the bottom of a bowl or across the face of a platter. After that, this gouge has no function. And it's really important that it's a strong gouge. So Doug Thompson made a copy of the original Jerry Glazer gouge, which is this one. So why didn't I use this one over this one? Yeah, it's a bigger gouge, wouldn't it be more comfortable? It's exactly the perfect shape because it's a radius gouge, but it sucks. It's 1 inch too long, the flute. When I used it racing against Mike, it was singing like a canary. Because it's a weak gouge, it's a very weak gouge, he was giving the customer a better deal, but he actually didn't give the customer a better deal. The gouge I just used to do the bottom roll gouge cut was a regular elliptical fluted gouge, so it had quite a bit of strength between here and here. The perfect bottom roll gouge is a half circle with a radius in it, which would be great, but he made the flute so long on this guy, even though you'd think that this one, we throw the camera in, this one is 5/8 and this one's 3/4, you'd think it'd be stronger. This one is stronger because it's more beam shape, it's taller, so it has the strength. Oh, not that one, it's this one. You'd think it would be strong, this would be stronger because it's wider, but it isn't. He made the flute just, you can see it's just 1 inch longer than the other one, and that kills it. When I used it twice, I'm like, oh man. So I'm gonna have to take it to the grinder, and I grind 1 inch off, and it'll be great. It just sings so bad. It's like, it makes its own little song. It's just, and it's awful. It just vibrates. So I just couldn't use it to demo. So in the middle of the demo with Mike, I quickly swapped it out and put this one on. Nobody noticed. So it just shows you that sometimes we don't want a really long flute, which seems like a better deal. It just made the gouge horrible to use. Yes, Tom.
Bring it over to the shop and we'll cut it off.
We'll cut it off. We will.
Stay here an hour for the grinding.
I was just going to wear down your CBN wheel and just rest it for an hour. Yeah, that's the problem with CBN. It's great to put an edge on, but it's horrible for taking any volume off. How about we do 5 minutes of questions and answers, and then we call it a draw at 8:45 and go and watch your football game.
That bottom bowl gouge, is there, the diameter, is there a good size? You said those were 2 different diameters.
Ideally, I'd like the 3/4. This would be great if the flute was this long, but it's this long. And that's its problem. It's not, because it's a half round bar, it's no good. So you could, this one is just a, this is a Solby gouge, and I ground it like a bottom bowl gouge. It's a Solby 5/8 regular bowl gouge, and so I just ground it like a bottom bowl gouge. This is the perfect one if the flute was shorter. So if I had the option, I would just have 1 3/4 of an inch. The problem is the 3/4 inch elliptical fluted bowl gouge to make a bottom bowl gouge means the wings are really high, because it's not a half circle, you know, it's full depth. So the 3/4 one is just massive.
It's almost shaped like a spindle.
No, that's a good let's just show you the difference. Let's show you the 3 types of gouges we work with. Elliptical fluted bowl gouge, spindle gouge, bottom bowl gouge. Spindle gouge, the radius here matches the radius on the gouge in general. So it could be a detail gouge, it could be in any of these planes, depending on the manufacturer. Normally, this radius, which is the same as the outside radius, goes right through the center. That's a normal spindle gouge. On a bowl gouge, the radius here goes below center. The problem with Doug Thompson's, he's using the best steel, but his V's are about this deep. And I mean, I lost that amount of cut, you know? It's missing. But I want to do the cut, I want the V that deep. Then I'll be happy with the V. Just doesn't make it deep enough. But he's got the best steel. And then this one he made is great. He just, for some reason, he just took the mill back an extra inch, and it made it horrible. And it's just weird. I tried it twice, and I've used a lot of gouges, and it's not because I own a lot of gouges, but every time I teach a class, everybody's brought their own gouges, and I've used gouges, and I just know instantly it's not fixable. It needs to be cut off. So that's a bottom bowl gouge. The reason it's weak is we mill away the surface, which is there on a regular gouge. That extra material makes it more rigid. So you have to shorten the flute. But the reason it's such a great bottom bowl gouge is it's a beautiful radius, because it's just a radius, and it's an equal wall thickness all the way around. And as long as the flute is short, it performs great. But I can also make one of these with a bottom bowl gouge. You just got to be careful that the wings are really high, and in a tiny little bowl they can catch. But you'd have to be a pretty small bowl to catch. Yes, Tom?
Did you say that was a glazer gouge or a Thompson gouge?
There's a Thompson, which is a copy of the original glazer.
The one that's got the flute that's too long?
Yeah, you've got an original glazer, haven't you?
Yes.
Right, how short is yours? It's like half a length,
Yes.
isn't it? And doesn't it perform great?
Beg your pardon?
And it's a great gouge, isn't it?
Yeah,
The short flute.
well.
So Tom's got the original, one of the very original glazers, and what it was, if we don't get the camera on this, is the flute is only this long. This one's 2 inches longer. And so the original glazer gouge, when you use it, it's like magical. It's like the magic tool across the bottom of the bowl. And this would also be too, we'll just have to chop off an inch. It just, for some reason, that's way past the dynamics of what this steel can take when you're hanging off the tool rest. It's just, you know, manufacturer trying to give you a little bit of extra value for money, but it went wrong. Yeah. One more question?
Is that the one you did for actually?
No. Ashley's was shorter. So for some reason or other, this time he's taken the flute back further. Yeah. I mean, Doug makes so many gouges, I'm betting he doesn't even work up himself on the mill, that I bet he doesn't even work up engineering drawings. I'm betting because he's the only one doing it. You know, you have engineering drawings because somebody designed it and gave it to somebody else, generally. And right now, he knows the milling cutter that he uses in that, and he just said, this time I'm going to set it back an extra inch and make the gouge misperform. Any other questions? Yes?
You don't move your tool rests off the perpendicular.
Great question. Yes. Here's the reason why. There's the bottom of my bowl, and look where I am on the tool rest, okay? Right now, it's right by the rim of the bowl. The rim of the bowl is here. When I move my tool rest in, I'm still on the same spot at the end of the cut. That's the reason why. I'm exactly the same place, even if I pivot it. The only time it helps you, it was still the same spot, I'm still the same distance. The only time it would help me is it helps you with the initial entry, but when I finish, I end up in the back in the same spot. The problem is now, when the tool rest is at this angle inside a bowl, she actually wants to slide off the tool rest. At this point, you're nearly always at some perpendicular angle to the tool rest, it's better support. If I angle it, I've had it before where she starts to slide down the tool rest as I'm trying to get across. What would help you is a curved tool rest if it was the right curvature. But also curved tool rests, also because the curves usually too much. Most curved tool rests almost like are too close to 90. As you go around the corner, you hit the corner of the reverse of the curve. So what I've always gone to is I keep the tool rest where it is, and I was doing a 7-inch deep bowl with mahogany, which was really that deep. And all I did was just use longer handle. Yeah.
Now, if the bowl is big enough and you're using a fat grind, you can actually put the tool rest in from the other side, from the back, lay the gouge in there and push it across. You don't have to have your hand on the rest of the back gouge.
You thought about putting the tool rest in the other way? This way in? Yes, you could. Yes, you could. He's right. You could. You could take it in and reverse it. The bowl would
The bowl has to be big.
What's that? The bowl would have to be big. They definitely wouldn't be, the bowl I just did wasn't big enough, but that could be done. Yes. So Alan is right. You could move the tool rest in. I've never done it. Great idea. I should try it sometime. We want one more question or one call it? Any more? Well, really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. I know you want to go on.